Greetings. I'd like to welcome all the PLC representatives together with observers gathered here today. I would like also to extend a special welcome to the Executive Committee representatives, the departmental directors, the pastors, and of course my fellow officers. It gives me pleasure as the president of the Cape Conference to render this report, which covers the period from December 2018 to September 2019. The Cape Conference Constitution in section 11.6 reads as follows: the Executive Committee shall render a written report of its activities to all the churches of the constituency at least once a year in a manner determined by the Executive Committee. It is therefore in keeping with this constitutional provision that we gather here today to listen to this report. The report will highlight some of the plans, achievements, and challenges which are informed to a great extent by the key performance areas adopted by Executive Committee. Thus, the report will be divided as follows: the summary of the executive actions taken during this period, and of course the report on key performance areas, and we end with challenges and recommendations. The Executive Committee in 2019, which started towards the end of 2018, in its sittings, has taken the following key actions. I'll just give a list of these actions, and we will be saying more of these actions later on in the report. Is the appointment of departmental directors and subcommittees that help the committee in its work. We have also approved the alternative pastoral ministry model, which would create a space for pastors to engage in ministry while having an alternative source of income. We'll say more about this later. We also took a decision to inform Kankele SDA School that the occupation of the property is unauthorized. This effectively seeks to close all operations at Kankele SDA School. We have taken an action to ensure that all committee members are faithful in returning tithe. In all our meetings, all members are expected to sign a tithe compliance form that will be used by auditors to verify the information reflected on the form. We are also glad to announce that the church has taken a vote to have 2 of our pastors ordained and 1 to be commissioned, Pastor Kahlana and Pastor Matikinga, who are going to be ordained, and Pastor Dube. We have also recommended the theme for 2020 care meetings, and the theme is that we may be one, which is in line with one of our key strategic areas. We encourage all districts to adopt this as their theme for their care meetings in 2020. The EXCOM has also voted to assign departmental directors to churches, and these our directors have willingly accepted. We have also taken an action to do a strict auditing of church structures to ensure that the churches adequately represent our mission, and of course to audit our members to determine whether the church still qualifies for church status. More on this later. The decision to allocate more funds for evangelism toward pre-campaign activities and not just the reaping campaign. And of course, we're excited that we were able to take an action that where we set the first Sunday of each quarter as a community impact day throughout our conference. And Cape Town, Mthatha, and Kimberley have been selected as the 3 towns in our conference where we are going to do our TMI programs. We'll say more about this in our report. The Executive Committee has taken and adopted the 3 key performance areas for our strategic plan for this term. These are 6 areas: the mission, which focuses on comprehensive evangelism; spiritual growth and nature, which looks at membership growth, church planting; unity, which is cohesion amongst race and culture and interest groups within the conference. Leadership, which deals with governance and effective operations. Education, which focuses on promotion of Adventist education and support for Adventist institutions. And lastly, infrastructure and capacity building, focusing on property, asset management, and the related aspects of our mission. We plan to solicit your feedback on the strategic plan document as it will be discussed during this meeting, during the course of our meeting here. And this will be voted in the next executive committee after, of course, incorporating your input. In the area of mission, looking now at our key performance areas, in the area of mission, which is the first one, I can report that the membership of the conference as of September 2019 stands at 45,291. The Secretariat has outlined in his report the growth trend in the conference for this period. We do, however, notice a steady decline in membership growth, but also bearing in mind that more reports will be given at the end of the reaping campaigns that usually take place from October onwards. The model of the cycle for evangelism continues to be our operational model for evangelism. We have noticed that most churches in our conference tend to focus on public evangelism meetings at the neglect of other phases of evangelism. We would like to have a comprehensive approach to evangelism that include other aspects as well as seen in our cycle of evangelism. The conference has traditionally channeled most, if not all, of its resources to reaping campaigns. The church worldwide is encouraging all members to be involved in evangelism through TMI. Now, but as a conference, we have taken an action to redirect our resources to the events and programs and activities that lead to the reaping campaigns. So, and these reaping campaigns and other programs are actually the platform where all members are involved through their various spiritual gifts. October remains the month set aside for reaping evangelistic meetings. So in other words, October brings the climax of all the activities that have taken place through the year. We would also like to thank SID and SAU for setting aside substantial resources for TMI activities that will take place in 2020 and 2021. So we are focusing in Cape Town. SID and SAU jointly will be focusing in Cape Town or Cape Peninsula as their target area. The conference is targeting Tata and Kimberley, also putting resources in those two towns, one in the northern region and the other one in the eastern region. We have also dedicated every first Sunday or weekend of the quarter has been set aside throughout the conference for Community Health Impact Day. This is designed to create more visibility of the church and intentional and strategic involvement by our members in the community. It is very encouraging to receive reports of the involvement of our youth in the community. Recently, we saw our young people in the eastern region who built a house for an old woman at Teko village in Baraworth. And you'll find that story in the report of the youth director in the eastern region. There's a lot that is done by our young people in all our regions. Indeed, with such an army of workers as our youth, rightly trained, might furnish how soon the message of a crucified, risen, and soon coming Savior might be carried to the whole world. With young people like this, the future of our church is indeed very bright. Church planting continues to be a goal for evangelism. We have, however, noticed that in our conference, church planting has been confused with church growth. Church growth is actually membership growth. This growth should then lead to establishment of vibrant congregations that are properly resourced in terms of finance and leadership. Our conference has the highest number of churches and the lowest number of members per church in the SAU. In other words, we have churches that are everywhere, but with very few members inside the church building. This has resulted in the need to have more pastors while the income from members does not justify that need. So the conference is engaged in discussions with the aim of increasing the membership threshold for church status so as to enable churches to have sufficient leadership and adequate financial resources. There are churches who have had a drastic loss of membership. Others are sitting at 10 or less members. According to the church manual, such churches should be dissolved. This will create an opportunity for the dissolved church to receive leadership support from the mother church, thereby increasing its prospect for growth. In front of you, reflected on the screen, is a table that illustrates the magnitude of this challenge. You will see in that table, I'm not going to go through all this, as you can see in the table. For example, the Cape Conference has about 496 churches. It has 97 pastors and a membership of 45,291. And the membership ratio per pastor is 467. Now you compare that with the other conferences. For example, look at the member per church. The KNFC has 104. TOC has 151. Our conference has the lowest member per church, which means we are having few members in each church and thereby spreading most members throughout the conference in different churches. Now, this may look very good, but it is not a good sign, because in South Africa, for you to be able to have good leadership and financial resources, you need more members per church, because half of those, if not more than half, are not working. So if you have a church with 40 members, you'll find that only 10 are working. And as a result, they're not able to build proper structures. So you need more members, because more members would need more resources, and also the leadership potential is also there. So you can see in that figure, in that table there, that indeed a lot needs to be done. Of course, we're not even reflecting the condition of those churches, which is another business altogether. On the second one, on spiritual growth and nurture, we all know that financial stewardship is an effective indicator of one's spirituality. The conference faithfulness on financial stewardship is less than 30%, give or take. The finances of the conference can be described as critical. If we look at the trend, even though we're doing better than the previous terms, but we are still operating under the red or in the red. We are still operating below the normal expectation, even though there's a slight improvement. We would like to praise God for the faithfulness of His people in tithes and offering. The anecdotal evidence seems to suggest that most young professionals are having challenges in returning a faithful tithe and offering. The Stewardship Department is taking this seriously, and programs to address this are underway. Several initiatives have been undertaken by various departments in our conference to lift the spirituality of our members. The Department of Women's Ministries has organized prayer meetings and retreat as part of this spiritual revival. The Youth Department has organized Youth Congress for the 3 regions for the first time this year. This was an attempt at reaching most of our young people who in the past struggled to access such events. We are thrilled to report that the Northern Cape region held its first Youth Congress for the first time, and it proved to be a success. We plan to continue in this direction even in 2020. On unity, the Gospel Commission compels us to take the message to all languages, cultures, tribes, and nations. The church and the conference in particular will always be striving towards unity. While the issue of unity targets different aspects such as racial unity, doctrinal unity, and non-factionalism, it is the latter that threatens to derail our conference from its divine assignment. The conference executive committee took upon itself to create an environment of trust and transparency in all our meetings. We are endeavoring to improve communication with churches through the PLC, and of course, we are continuously working with our pastors through their pastoral fraternal meetings to update them on the developments of the church. And of course, there is room for improvement even in that area. We have managed to contain all possible and potential conflictual situations that would have led us to secular courts of law for arbitration. We can report, of course, that this area continues to be work in progress. Our conference boasts of several racial and ethnic groups. In recent times, we have been blessed by the increase in our membership of foreign national members. We have, as part of the conference district, a Malawian district that is thriving and very vibrant, an Ethiopian church, and of course the Rwandan church. And of course we have other nationalities throughout the churches in our conference. We have made it our policy to respect and promote all languages in the conference. While English remains this official language of communication in the conference, attempts at interpreting relevant and important resources to other languages are made. This does not preclude churches from worshiping in their own preferred language. In the spirit of unity, churches are encouraged, especially within the PLC, to intentionally create opportunities for events and programs that will bring all cultural groups together. It was my privilege, I can say, to be part of the annual convocation that normally takes place at Heidelberg College campus. This is a deliberate attempt by the three churches to come together for worship and fellowship by bringing all the people together under one roof. This represents the racial ideal that we hope to achieve in our conference. We have observed that we do not always see all racial groups represented in most of our conference events. We have a subcommittee that has been appointed to look into these matters and to recommend practical steps that can be taken to address all the concerns we have in this area. In the area of education, our conference it is the only conference that has 7 primary schools and 3 high schools. It's the highest number of educational institutions run by a conference in this union. If these schools are compared to the conference membership, it is easy to justify having so many schools. However, the reality is that far less than half of our members send their children to our schools. Our schools continue to struggle for enrollment, and the majority of those who attend are not from Adventist families. There are, however, schools that are running efficiently with a zero debt with the conference, and a budget has been created to assist in any form with the turnaround strategies, especially for the Eastern Cape schools, because there we see a serious challenge. The report of the Education Director will definitely reflect on some of these challenges. In the area of leadership, the church pastor ratio in our conference stands at around 1:7. So we've got one pastor looking after 7 churches. If we put all the points together, you'll see that it goes to about 9 serving points. This raises the need to have more local members taking up leadership roles, both as elders and departmental leaders in their churches. Leadership training in various departments is an ongoing program, and it must be emphasized. The IICM, that is facilitated by the Sabbath School and Personal Ministries, seeks to develop a well-rounded and committed member. And these programs have taken place in our conference, and we will get the specific report as far as statistics are concerned in this area. The Youth Department sponsors various youth leadership programs in Master Guide and advanced leadership programs for senior youth. Leadership certification for both women and children's ministries are hugely supported by our churches. Family ministries will be conducting a certification program for the first time in 2020, and this has been reflected in our 2020 calendar. One key aspect of leadership the conference has embarked upon is the professionalization of pastoral ministry. The conference boasts of more than 97 pastors in its fold, making it the conference with the highest number of pastors in our union. The conference is committed to equipping all our pastors with the relevant tools to enable them to work efficiently. By the time this report is read, we hope to report that all pastors will have been provided with the necessary equipment for efficiency and effectiveness in their work. The conference is rolling out an electronic online monitoring and evaluating system that will assist both the pastors and the administration in evaluating pastoral performance and monitoring time management by pastors, directors, and administrators. We have already started providing offices as an official working place and space for the local pastors in their districts. This will increase the availability and accessibility of pastors in their district. Our salary wage bill for pastors is around, for the whole conference is around 55%, and the recommended percentage is less than 50%. The conference will only, for 2019, fill vacancies created by the retiring pastors, and for 2020, this will amount to not less than 5 interns, pastoral interns that will be employed. In the area of infrastructure and capacity building, which is our last key area, one of the catalysts for church growth is good and neat church buildings. We praise God for the dedication of our members in maintaining their churches and in constructing churches that are not only safe but are neat and well kept with good aesthetics. It is, however, sad to notice that there are churches that worship in structures that are not safe and are below the acceptable standard. Due to the reality of ascending liability and insurability of churches, the SAU has taken an action for churches to have certificates of occupation issued by the municipality and approved by the church before using the building for worship. It is a fact and a historical one that erecting decent church buildings in some areas of our conference is difficult due to scarcity of resources. At the moment, in some townships and rural areas, we have small churches that are struggling to have sites and those that have sites that are struggling to erect proper structures. We are encouraging churches within close proximity to see if they can't merge so as to combine their resources to enable them to erect decent structures. A decent structure attracts people. The conference is working on a project in Hartenbos River Resort to build an auditorium that will be sitting between 2,500 and 3,000 people. This will alleviate the problem of venue for most of our big meetings that we run as a conference and district as well. We solicit all members to give hand and support this project with their resources and skills. The conference has set aside an amount of 3 million as a start-up for this program. Here is a summary of our challenges and recommendations. The conference should continue to work towards visible unity among members, transparency and involvement of church members in the key strategic decisions is encouraged and will continue to be encouraged. Community involvement by our churches as part of the cycle of evangelism must continue to be emphasized. All churches are to make this a big part of their regular activities. No event should come to an end without any meaningful community engagement program that is planned. Our conference is the largest conference in the Union. For example, from one point, Cape Town, to the furthest point in the conference, Umzimkulu, it's about 1,440 kilometers. The conference will continue to look at various options, including strengthening of the existing regions and new conferences, if possible, as we embark on restructuring models. Proper remittance from the churches to the conference remains a big challenge. Continuous training of local church treasurers is needed and effective follow-up by the local pastors. The conference has the lowest members per church in the whole union. We have seen drastic increase in the number of churches, but the membership does not reflect this reality. This has created, among others, the need for more pastors. The conference needs to look into using membership and tithe income as a basis for establishing a district. The conference is in a process of collecting data on the church building structures, clearly showing the number of churches that do not have proper building structures. The conference, therefore, needs to develop a church building funding model that will assist the struggling churches. Churches are also encouraged to consolidate their resources by combining their churches that are within close proximity as much as possible. In conclusion, we want to thank God the Almighty for His sustenance and His guidance over the last few months. Indeed, we have nothing to fear for the future. The Lord has been good and the Lord has been faithful. We confess our unfaithfulness and at times our sinfulness that has been reflected in some of our dealings with one another. May God forgive us as we move into this new year. We thank our members for their faithfulness and their commitment to God's mission. May God bless all of us, and may we have a prosperous and a successful 2020 as individuals and as churches in our conference. Amen.